Hello and welcome to the DownShift, hosted by Happy, Lockie, Schwags and myself, KT, as we review the Qatar Grand Prix at the Lusail International Circuit. And Oscar's back, baby! Well...
Yeah, he's back.
Oscar
won a
might be.
sprint.
The rest of the team
You can't
wasn't,
win a
but Oscar
sprint.
was there.
Oscar was there. The rest of the team was there in spirit, but not
Mm.
physically.
Well, in this episode, we look back over the weekend with the strong performance from Oscar, not so much McLaren, as we are now one race away from the end of the season. As it's
Lights out.
Drop the clutch.
And let's get racing.
Hello and welcome to the Downshift. Now, before we start, the team attended a charity golf day the other day. So here we all are in our Downshift polos, kindly provided to us by Schwags.
I would say we're looking resplendent.
That was the start of the day.
We look better than our golf swings, that's for sure.
That's not hard, let's be honest.
The important thing, no one died, which is a sign of
okay.
success for us at a
That's a
golf
real
day.
Down on that one, yeah.
But no, great fun had by the four of us. And look, we actually channeled Lando Norris, and there's a few F-bombs dropped here and there. So
Channel
It was-
Lando
there
or
was-
Yuki?
It was a couple, I wouldn't go excessive, but yeah.
we've come from a weekend where desert drama was at its finest. Max Verstappen's strategic masterstroke victory, while McLaren's safety car gamble backfire. I don't know if it was a gamble, and leading us into a nail-biting three-way title showdown for us coming up for Abu Dhabi. But for the Aussie viewers, it was great to see Oscar back with a heroic P2 flying the Aussie flag nice and high. Unfortunately, Oscar did sum it all up at the end of the race over the radio, where his response was speechless. I just don't have any words.
That about summed that up. Yep.
Yeah, what do you say after a day like that?
Yeah.
Well, you just take a hug from Zach Brown and continue on.
Yeah,
Look, I must admit, when I
that
watched
didn't
it,
look awkward
I was-
at all, did it?
As I was watching the race and everyone was pitting on lap 7 except for McLaren, I think Lando asked his engineer, why aren't we doing that? And then he said that it gave him more options further down. And I thought that at the time that was potentially the right thing, because from then on it had to be 2 blocks of 25 exactly. No plus, no minus. But clearly it didn't work out for them in the end.
No. I guess it surprised me that they didn't at least pit one of them just to split strategy. And it is tough when you're leading because you're at the front and the opposition behind you can decide what they're going to do based on what you do. But when I saw everyone pull into the pits, you could look at the scoreboard down the side of the ticker saying in pits, in pit, in pit, in pit, and the only 2 cars left out were the McLarens. And that basically meant that Max got just a free pit stop on fresh tyres and, could keep up with them. And yeah, that was hard to watch.
And don't forget Esteban Ocon. I mean, he also stayed out for one lap.
Well, yeah, 1 lap. But I know in the intro there, KT, you said Max Verstappen's masterstroke strategic victory. It wasn't him, it was the team. But it was interesting in the press conference after that, most of the team principals, or the ones that I heard, all said, yeah, we were surprised because when we went through our scenarios and we did our planning at that point in the race, if there was a safety car, we decided we would pit. That was what the strategy was for them. And McLaren would seem to be the only team that went in another direction.
I don't think it was a Max Verstappen masterclass. I think it was an everyone but McLaren masterclass.
Yeah.
I did find it strange that they waited to the second last race of the season to go and ask Ferrari's pit crew to have their strategy and what they would do in a situation like that and then implement. I just think that was very strange. But anyway, I could be wrong.
And then Ferrari didn't do that anyway.
No.
They followed the suit with everyone else.
Ferrari looked like they'd waved the white flag before the race started. They were nowhere. That was,
Yeah.
I mean, look, it was also another race. We've seen a lot this season where there was less overtaking than previous years. It's always been a hard track to overtake on. So I think anyone whose strategy was to try and put some fresher tyres on and get 2, 3, 4, 5 overtakes done at the end of the race to win it was going to be up against it. So, yeah, really disappointing to see that from McLaren, and both drivers were equally upset by it because, Lando was okay coming second. He was maintaining his lead in the championship, and that was good for him, and he knew Oscar was quicker than him all weekend. So Lando's comments at the end of the race were similar to Oscar's. They were both really, really pissed off with it.
Well, you can't be that upset, though, because, Dan, don't you have some breaking news for us?
What is the breaking news? Oh, that's right. The breaking news that no, I saw that and I wasn't sure you were
tried to
agreeing
do
with
a perfect lead in,
It was just like on the golf course. You've lined it up perfectly. You've swung back, but then you've lifted your head.
Yeah. Anyway, the breaking news, according to some websites, is that Lando Norris is the champion for this year.
According to F1.
He's got one championship. On the Formula One side, he's got one championship to his name. So well done, Lando. Good race on Saturday. You did well.
Can I put my chips in now then, if that's the case?
It might be a bit eager,
Still
but
wouldn't help you. There's a lot of ways you can do it.
it's definitely his to lose, that's for sure.
It is his to lose, and obviously, F1.com has decided that he hasn't lost it, and he's already taken the championship. He's got the trophy sitting on his bedside table back at home.
You get the hired help to come in on the weekend and put things up.
It was a sprint weekend, so as we look at the sprint race, it was dominance from Oscar from go to woe. From lights out, he followed it through the whole race, controlled the 19-lap dash, winning by over 10 seconds, with George Russell in P2 and then Norris in P3.
Can I say something?
You can.
God, that was a boring sprint race. I know we haven't been a big fan of sprint races for the last year or two, but this one in particular you just could have skipped over it. Like, it wasn't even worth watching.
As opposed to the other sprint races, or?
Well, when there was some variation in the weather or something, you'd have a few overtakes or a red flag or a safety car, but this was just start to finish. There was virtually no overtakes, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was no real action to be had. It was a difficult track, like I said before, to overtake on. So, yeah, great.
Well, if you're hoping for variation
points,
in the weather, I've got some upsetting news for you in our next episode when I discuss.
That's one downside to these desert races. Yes,
but the sprint race at Mexico, that actually, I was surprised to say, was actually a good sprint race.
Yeah, there were a couple this year that were okay. Yeah, but this one, no.
Yes, this was not one of them.
Well, if you're a Piastri fan, this was a great sprint race to watch, but everybody else, not so much.
Well, the sprint race was, look, it showed what was probably going to happen in the main race, and that is not much overtaking because there's not much of a tyre delta there. Like even the guys there was a couple of runners on softs, I think, in the sprint race that, still kept up with everyone else. So.
Well, the tyre deck wasn't going to come into effect anyway when they're only running 25 laps. So there wasn't even a consideration of, let's run for 26 or 27 laps. It was just 25 enough.
Crack it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, particularly after they had the safety car on lap 7. It's like, well, now you've got to run 2 solid blocks of 25. But no one ever thought, will we make the tyres make it? Because they knew it'd last.
Yeah. And, obviously Red Bull used some of that data to try and improve their car for qualifying, and they did a bit, but still couldn't keep up with the McLarens. The McLarens were strong all weekend, and the sprint race was a good showing from Oscar. He proved that I think he had the wood over Lando this weekend.
It was his favourite track, isn't it? Or one of his favourite tracks?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and he definitely was back. You'd see that he was confident, very smooth, in regards to a higher grip track. It suits him, and he just dominated the entire weekend. So,
yeah, and he did cut his points deficit to Lando by 2 points, so not a huge amount, but at least it went from 24 to 22 points. So it's just another step closer. So yeah, going into qualifying, he must have been pretty confident that he'd be able to hopefully get pole position and get a race win and start clawing that deficit back a bit more.
And so we saw that. We went into qualifying, and Oscar again performed better than his teammate, which put him in P1 for the main race. And Happy, you were mentioning as we get into the main race, it saw a change into what we'd expect from teammates going into a race.
Yeah, I noticed at the start that Oscar started with Lando behind him in P3 and Max in P2. Now, normally, if you're starting ahead of your teammate, you would give them a bit of draft to prevent a competitor from getting up into the mix, right? So maybe earlier in the season, what we would have seen is, Oscar got a good start, so we knew he had a good jump on Lando. He might have earlier in the season maybe pulled over and given Lando the tow up to turn 1, so Max couldn't get involved. But in this case, I thought it was interesting that he stayed out in front of Max. So he gave Max the tow down to turn 1, and I believe that would be to try and give Verstappen P2, so that would give him more of a points deficit, points gap to Lando in the race. So I don't know if anyone else listening or watching thought the same thing, but I was impressed that he did that. I think that's an intelligent thing to do in the battle for the championship. But yeah, something slightly different. You don't often not give the tow to your teammate down to turn 1.
Unless you don't like them.
Unless you want to really beat him in the championship. Yeah, but it worked. He gave Max P2 and away they went.
To be fair, though, I don't think it would have mattered if Max was behind him or Lando. Once he got round that first corner, he skipped away. And he just pushed the gas down and he just took off and went. And I don't think was it yesterday or this morning, it would have made any difference who was behind him. He was so dialed into that car and that track, it was his. He just took off and went. Within half a lap, he was already 1.5 seconds in front.
And managing his pace. Like, that's the thing. They knew the stints they had to do. That's it. So I guess in a way the maximum 25 laps per tyre takes away some strategy in a way, because drivers are probably not saving on tyres too much. They know they've just got to push because they have to change tyres. But yeah, also if there's safety cars and other things that happen, it could introduce new strategy. But Oscar was managing it easily by the looks of it out in front.
It just goes to show, I think the cars in front with clean air, they're pretty hard to catch.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I heard on the F1 commentary, they were saying that, you could lose 25 to 30% of your downforce if you're following a car from behind. And that's a huge amount. And I know next year that they're trying to introduce new regs to reduce that, but to lose that much downforce, especially on a track like this, which has got lots of medium to high speed corners, which really suits the McLaren, you can't follow too closely because you need that downforce to be faster around that track.
Until, Dan, we saw lap 7.
Yeah, lap 7, we saw Nico spin into turn 1 into the gravel after brushing Pierre Gasly. Well, I think it was a bit of argy-bargy, not bargy-bargy, but there wasn't room left, I think, around that corner. So Pierre got the flat tyre, didn't he? And Nico was off in the spins, and then we saw the safety car come out. And then it was bedlam, absolute bedlam, as everyone's calling for pits. And I think, like we said earlier, as they were preparing for this weekend, regardless of, everyone would have been going, we've got 225s at minimum. And then, so they would have gone, our worst case scenario is 2 25s and a 7. And bang, on lap 7, they get the safety car. So they go, right. It would have been plan A for everyone, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Except McLaren.
Except McLaren.
A set of mediums and a set of hards to the end or something, and you're there.
Yeah. Because that was, I mean, I know they talked about, it's a bit dicey if it's, it's right on, but then what else is going to happen? McLaren were probably hoping for maybe another safety car a bit further down the track to maybe.
That would have helped them a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
And there was talk about that on the radio.
They needed to have that. But the problem is that they didn't, their plan A should have still been what is happening, not what could happen, because I think they gambled on what could happen and it didn't happen for them. So, but what was interesting, it was an absolute frenzy in the pits. And I thought it was actually, it was certainly been hard to keep track of what position cars came in. and even what position they went out at, because it just seemed a bit of some cars were waiting, I think, for a moment for release to get back into the pit lane. And I thought that maybe McLaren not being in there might have been good for them just to say, let's stay out of all the drama. But I thought that then come lap...
The ones that were closer up the lane, I think, struggled more than the ones further down because they pulled in, got their tyres changed, but then had to wait for one or two of the cars who were further down the lane to actually go past them before they could rejoin. So the guys who were further down pit lane actually benefited out of that chaos.
Well, you saw Georgie, who almost got a unsafe release. So had to pull up for a second bit, avoid taking someone else out.
Oh, I thought all the teams did pretty well. No cars touched each other or got damaged. So, but
I was thinking when that happened too, I was expecting that on lap 32 that we would have a similar scenario, but I guess by then everyone had spaced out a bit, and it wasn't quite the case anymore.
You get that field spread, but I mean, it would have. Watching all that happen, McLaren obviously would have been hoping that, okay, even if Max pits, and one more car behind him, there might have been 5 or 6 or 7 others that decide, no, it's too early to pit. It takes away our flexibility for the rest of the race. And Max would have come out, 10 cars deep in the field and then would have still had to work his way up and overtake cars, but just didn't turn out like that. Every single car pitted. So the whole field got a free stop, against the McLarens. It was crazy to watch,
I found it interesting to compare what happened yesterday, or this race, compared to when they did Monaco, where they did a compulsory two-stop strategy. So the compulsory two-stop strategy was designed to break up the race and get people to move around a bit and stuff. But you still had that flexibility of using your tyres up to, 30-odd laps if you wanted to. So you could still strategize a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know this became a two-stop race not because of strategy or making it interesting, but because of safety concerns, according to Pirelli. But it was it sort of made the race a bit interesting at the start with all that, but then, it didn't do much else for it.
No, and it took the strategy away for the rest of the teams. All they had to do was drive to use up their tyres as much as possible in their 25-lap stints. So the only team left then to really make some sort of strategy call as to when to pit and what tyres to use was McLaren. So, and even at the end of the race, it was really up to Oscar to say to his team, if we've got any chance of getting a win here, we have to pit early and try and catch Max. Like, that's it. But I think at that point, McLaren just seemed to be happy to let him just stay out there and run down his stint on those tyres he had on. So, McLaren really went on the ball, I guess, but tough position as well for them to be first and have to make that call.
But even when Piastri made a comment like, well, put me on softs and I'll chase hard for it, they then put hards on his car. So even when he said, look, put the softs on, I'll absolutely gun it and have a crack at it, he ended up getting a set of hards in his car. And you're like, well, what's the point? Like,
I found that really disappointing. I found it really disappointing because, I mean, from that regards, he got on the radio and said, put me on the softs. It's the only way I'm going to be able to chase down Max.
But I don't think the softs would have lasted. Like, he'd probably already put laps on every set, and to make him last another 14 laps when he's going like flat out, I think they just would have destroyed themselves.
But again, who cares? I mean,
give it a go.
Said, he's free to race. They're both free to race. They've shown up the Constructors' Championship, and you've got your driver saying, give me the softs. Throw him on the softs, and if he DNFs, he DNFs, and that's on him that he's given up all chances of getting the championship. But he what made up, it was 9 seconds on the hards, chasing down Max at the end. So
Max is probably looking after his tyres a bit as well. Like, I'm sure he could have pushed a bit harder, but it's the only option. The only option they had after that lap 7 pit stop extravaganza.
Feels to me very much like they just sort of gave up on the strategy this weekend, or they've given up on the drivers. It's just like, we've got the championship in the bag. Because like we said, even if they had done one driver come in early and the second one hang it out and see what happens between the two of them, but they probably can't do that because of all the media attention they've been getting for we're favouring one driver over the other and this and that.
Well, splitting strategy is a pretty common thing to do when you're in a window where you think, we could take a pit stop here, but like we'd said before, they're the ones to make the first call. So what do you do? Like, even if you pitted, maybe the next 5 cars decide that, okay, we're going to go the opposite to McLaren and we won't pit. And McLaren are then 6 cars deep when they come out in the field, or 10 cars deep, with fresh set of tyres, but still hard to overtake. So it could have gone the other way, and they probably weren't keen to pit or take a gamble or a risk at that point with either driver because of their position in the championship. So, Red Bull were the ones with nothing to lose. Okay, let's pit and put some fresh tyres on.
They probably could have come in on lap 8, though, couldn't they? Like, once they'd seen, oh, crap, everyone else is pitted. Let's run you around the track. We'll get back in. We'll still come out sort of in order. We'll probably still be up the front end.
No.
And we'll be on the same strategy as everyone else.
Because by the time the safety car had the lights were coming off on that second lap, if they had a pitted, they would have come out pretty much at the end of the field. And so when the race restarted, they had to build as much of a gap as possible. And they were lucky that Alonso was sort of had his little Alonso train behind him. He was holding everyone up.
He was going as fast as he could.
But they had that gap to then pit into at the end of their stint. So even that was fortunate. Like, if Alonso had been faster, they would have been stuck back further in traffic and may not have ended up, in second and third. So, yeah, tough one.
Does anyone know if this 25 lap limit is just for the weekend gone, or is it going to be happening at Abu Dhabi as well?
Pirelli sent out a press release. I think it was about a week beforehand or just over that it would be a restriction, but they haven't sent anything out for this weekend.
No, Abu Dhabi has the smoothest, best,
lowest peg
asphalt deck on the entire calendar.
Yeah, it's not punishing on the tyres.
No.
So it's not the environment that the circuit's in, it's the quality of the track that's caused
the abrasiveness and the tyre wear. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Massive quartz content in the Qatar track, so that's really what chews it up. So that's the big issue there. Again, this has been a track that was designed more for motorcycle racing than F1, so you're seeing that different element.
So what does that come down to, KT? The title crunch. What happens?
Well, if we get into that, essentially we've got the fact that we've got the 3 drivers who are literally, so if we look at it, Max is 12 points behind Lando now, and we've got Oscar who's 16 points behind Lando. So there's 4 points between Oscar and Max. This lovely little graphic with their faces up there. But and this is how close it is. But ultimately, this is where, when we look at it with Lando, this is Lando's championship to lose now. Essentially, with the lead that Lando has got going into the last race of the season, he's got to be finishing 7th to lose the championship, with Max or Oscar finishing first. And with the 4 points between Oscar and Max, for either to have to win, essentially, if Lando DNF'd, Max would need to come in at least 3rd to win the championship, and Oscar would need to come in 2nd, but would have to actually have Max 2 positions behind him to beat Max. So they're the basic scenarios. You get online and there's about 50 million scenarios as to what could happen.
Yeah.
But essentially Lando's got to stuff up.
That's it. And
to lose this.
We're essentially heading into another strong track for McLaren in general. So it's still, I guess, at the end of the day, Lando's championship to lose at the moment.
Yep. But what a great end of the season, though, this close, and still 3 people, potential winners.
Yeah, well, it's come down to the last round, and that doesn't happen every year.
Rubbing their hands together, going, "How great is this? 3 title fighters."
Thank goodness they DNF'd him for the plankware 2 races ago.
Yeah,
made it interesting.
Exactly. What a finale.
Should you have put your tin hat on before you said that, Dan?
No, I'm not concerned. What are they going to do to me?
Well, you don't even have Oscar's name in your hat. You don't care.
Nah.
But one driver who does need to be thanked, who brought their team in a cool $10 million over the weekend, was Fernando Alonso. We were talking about last week the midfield fight, and so you can see here in regards to the midfield contenders, we've had a nice upkick for Aston Martin as well as Williams Racing, because we've had Carlos Sainz, who I felt sorry for Carlos in the post-race interview.
Great drive.
Oh, driver of the day for
Great
me.
drive.
And but I had to laugh. You had Oscar, Max, and Carlos sitting there at the post-race interview, and Carlos is just sitting there with no questions whatsoever. It's like, hey, guys, P3.
When they were doing the post-race, the very first interview, just after they all finished, they've interviewed, Max, and all good, and they've interviewed Oscar, and he was a bit quiet. And as soon as Carlos Sainz came out, the crowd was cheering, and they loved him, absolutely loved him.
Well, it's like, did you see when they got out of the cars and Max was jumping into his team, and he was out, he was jumping his team, and Oscar looked like he'd lost his puppy. He was walking around, and someone would come up and he'd smile and he'd shake their hand, go, well done. And then as soon as he turned around, his face just went. And
I think Brundle commented that all contrast. I think Brundle had commented that all the McLaren pit crew and everyone had just disappeared into the back of the garage.
Yep. Yeah, I think they had to basically make sure their stories were straight and, do a bit of
emergency PR.
Quick debrief, emergency PR,
Yes.
exactly.
As we look at our predictions for the weekend, interesting. So, popping this up, Happy, we've got you sitting at 48 points because you took 2 points from the weekend with Oscar coming in second.
There we go.
But Lockie, you and I both took 5 points out.
Ooh,
Thank you
the
to
gap.
Max and to Oscar. So we've
it.
now got Lockie, who's 2 points behind Happy, and myself 1 point behind Lockie. So again, we've decided
gone down to the last round.
And just to clarify, how many points did Dan pick up this weekend?
Dan picked. Oh, actually,
Go
sorry.
through the mud.
No, we were going to do double points, weren't we?
Double points for Dan. Yeah.
So actually, I need to update this. So I'll update this for our next episode because Schwag's got 3 points because he.
Is it worth doing? Is it going to make a difference?
Well, look, why not? I mean,
cares about that?
we Lockie made the offer, so we need to follow through on that. So sorry, Dan, I've got you up there at 26 points, but it's actually 29 points. You took 3 points for P1.
At least I know who my real mates are.
I got your back, Dan. Don't worry.
Yeah, thanks, Lockie.
And look, I'm happy to roll that through for next week as well, Dan. You can have double points for next weekend as well.
Thanks, mate.
Would you imagine-
What's the maximum points or what's about 8 points, 9 points? What is it, 5?
14 in total. If you can have the whole thing, you get 7 points.
7. So you get 7. So 14. So even at 14, I'm still toast. Nice.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Which is why I'm happy for you to have double points.
I think even triple points doesn't get me in the hunt. Anyway, enough about me.
No, it doesn't actually. Yeah. Anyway,
it's been a close battle, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Except for Dan.
So between 3 of us,
the podium steps have been busy the whole time. That's fine.
So our viewers and listeners will be eagerly anticipating our next episode, which will drop on Thursday, where we will actually do our final predictions for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Dan, don't know if you'll be putting any additional names into the hat.
I'll have to have a think about that. I'm not sure. Maybe. I don't know who's worthy. I mean, I've probably got to put the top 3 in. I've probably got to put Oscar back in.
I think Oscar deserves to go back in now after this weekend's effort.
Yeah. He had a good weekend. He's back on form.
Seems to be.
So with that, be sure to tune in for Thursday as we do our preview of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, as well as our track drive through, and we'll see you on the next lap.